Wow.
I was going to say, well, we're live. All right. So this is the Global Virtual Design Sprinter GVDS Presents. This is session number 6, I believe. Out of the 5 we had previous, this is number 6. And today, we're featuring someone that you probably have never heard of before. And if you have, then you're very lucky to have known her. Her name is Sandy Lam.
Actually, I think a lot of people have heard of Sandy Lam because, as I mentioned, the same name is a very, very famous singer in Hong Kong.
That's true. So are you the twin sister of that famous singer,
No.
or are you the designer side of that famous singer, or is that famous singer not even worth mentioning?
You can say I will be the new generation.
I got it. Oh, yeah, you're the new version. I get it. All right. That's a good way of marketing yourself. That's good. So the new version of Sandy Lam is as a product designer at Software AG. I know her as the Sandy Lam, the person that is the design guru behind the Global Virtual Design Sprint 3.0 this year. She's doing an incredible amount of work behind the scenes on the templates that people are going to be using. You're helping out with a lot of different, you're collaborating with a few people in the GVDS on some things that you're going to be doing in November. I am an unabashed, huge fan of yours, basically because I think that you align with a lot of the principles I have around execution and trying new things and just seeing where things go. I will also add that you were the most valuable practitioner that was not voted by me. This was voted by the peers, the people that you worked with over the course of April in the second Global Virtual Design Sprint that we had done. So
yes,
I'm very happy. Honored. Yes, I'm very happy that you're here. We got a lot to talk about, even though offline we said we were going like, what are we going to talk about? There are a few things. We do highly encourage all of you, whether you're on the YouTube feed or you are registered through Zoom, to bring in your questions in the Q&A in the chat. I'll be monitoring those as Sandy answers questions and kind of gives her perspective on things. And we'd love to hear from you. So this is an interactive kind of session. It isn't just where you stare at the screen. You can actually ask questions. You can heckle us. You can do things that are age appropriate, obviously. And I think we'll have a good time with it. So for people that have never known you or don't know who you are, new version of Sandy Lam, why don't you give a brief kind of origin story, what you're all about, and set the stage for what we're going to be talking about.
Origin story. Well,
or I could just say read your Medium blog and be like, okay, well, all of it's there. She's documented it. Like, you lived in Canada for a time, correct?
Yeah.
And
yeah. So I was born in Hong Kong, and then I grew up actually in Canada, Vancouver, and a couple years ago I moved to Germany. And I guess the Medium article that you're referring to is called Where Are You From? As the title, because that's actually a very, very tough question for me to answer every time. And I was just at our company's celebration, 50-year celebration last couple of weeks ago. And as you could have imagined, like people will be coming to you and asking, where are you from? And it was like, every time I just like, what do you mean? And then they were like, what, where are you from? And then it's just like, I don't even know how to tell, because like my life is just basically divided into all different origins, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then so when I answered saying like, oh, I'm from Canada, then they look at me like, you look like not like a Canadian. Like they expect the word Chinese, I guess. And then when I say I'm from,
well, wait a minute, is there such a thing as a Chinese Canadian?
Yeah.
I mean, there should be, right? I mean, kind of weird that, well, you don't look the part. Well, you kind of are. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
And then when I say like I'm from Hong Kong, because that's actually where I'm from, and then they will be like, oh, China. And like, well, actually, I don't know so much things about China. And then they keep asking me about like the situation in China right now. And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm sorry. And then like sometimes I will answer like, yeah, like I'm from Canada. And then they will be like, well, I'm asking you which city in Germany you are from. not exactly where were you from before. So yeah, that is like really, really tough question for me. That yeah.
So let me ask you something. Well, what was your interest in design? Was it something that you've had for a long time? Is it something you kind of grew into? Where did your origins come with kind of involving yourself with this
I
discipline?
blame my dad.
Really? So what did your dad do?
Yeah, so I guess like as a kid, like he just bought in a computer and then bought this copy software. Like I started with like Illustrator and Photoshop when I was like a child, like I don't even know how old, but was really, really young. And then I just got on the software and then start creating my own business cards. Like I don't even have a title for it. I just have my name and then put some pictures around it. And then I would cut it out into small cards and then hand it out to people, just because I had the access of the software much, much earlier than I guess a lot of people do. I would think that will actually make me started on it, and then kind of just go with the flow actually. But also like in our Chinese culture, studying design is quite um, like people would think that you're like design and art are pretty similar. And you know, like in our culture, when you tell your parents like you want to study art
Mhm.
or design, they would always say no. So I actually had to study an economic degree first. So, and during that time, I was also part-time studying graphic design. And then after that, then I went in an actual design school and then got my industrial design degree. So that kind
So
of,
so
yeah.
basically you were kind of playing both sides. You were playing to the expectations of your parents to basically fulfill like a certain status from a professional standpoint for economic security, so to speak, or at least the idea
Mm.
that you're going to have it. And then your own kind of desire to be in the design realm and kind of continue that on, from your nascent business card business that you had started all the way until where you were kind of headed to.
Yeah. Because like in our culture, like when you study art and design, they would just think like it's not going to make a life from it. So I
Yeah.
think like now things has changed a lot. Like I can't believe that is still the same case. But previously, and also the difference is like in our culture, a lot of the times like the parents actually pay for our education
Mm-hmm.
in versus like in the typical Canadian culture or Western culture. Normally, like you expect the kid to go get a part-time job and then, or in Germany, actually school is like is for free, so you don't even need to worry about that. But in our culture, because they are paying for it, so then we kind of have to, you know, listen
Yeah.
to them.
You're on the payroll, so if
Yeah,
they're kind of funding you, then they're in charge.
exactly.
So when was the transition to going full-time design? I mean, when was it after had the graduation and you've gone through that process and now you're saying, okay, I've got the degree, can I go full-time with this?
Yeah, so after I was pretty lucky because after I graduated the industrial design degree or industrial design school, then I was the very few people actually found a job in Vancouver in that field. And when I started, I worked in a very, very small design agency. There was like only 3 or 4 people. And my title was like a mix, like typical small agency kind of thing. So I was building physical products, like creating CAD files and all that stuff, engineering stuff, as well as we were responsible from like doing the marketing materials. I was also in China, like trying to manage the production of the actual products. And then afterwards, we also have to manage all the procurement and to like building the website that they can actually sell their products. So that actually it's a really small company, but that actually gave me a lot of experience in different kind of design. So yeah.
Hmm.
And then after that, then I actually got myself a job as a technical illustrator. Most people would think it's a pretty boring job, to me, actually, it was very interesting because it kind of act as like it helped me to trigger another side of my brain, and it actually trained me to work with engineers. So yeah.
So well, it was that helpful perspective where I also, I used to work in code a lot, but having that perspective and knowing how my design work was being transmuted or basically being interpreted by a different group of people that were going to use it on their own, I learned really quickly what was valuable to them and what wasn't in terms of the process. So it helped me think, it helped me realize that it wasn't just my own point of view, it was, you know, the other people that you were kind of working with in the same space. Did you find that working with engineers in industrial design uh, helped to shape some of your design point of view going forward later on?
Yeah,
Like how you can
definitely.
approach things?
Definitely. Because I think a lot of the times, like at least like when I started doing design, one big mistake is that I was very attached to my work, and I will always like I always felt like my idea was like the best, and then you have to take it. I don't understand why you are not taking it in a way. So that is like a big fail. But then when I actually work with the engineers and try like actually watch how my design become real products, then I realize a lot of the things that we think is good actually is it doesn't even work in a way, especially in physical products, you know? Like when you say like that, I don't know, I don't have a quick example in my head, but sometimes you would think like the design should be a certain shape, but then it's not even possible to get the mold for that.
Mhm.
So like yeah, then you from that you will understand the limitation, and then you will get the idea that okay, actually sometimes my design is not as good. It doesn't mean that it's bad, but then sometimes you have to actually see a bigger picture of it and not just focusing on your own. And that actually is a big thing that I have learned, and it helps me a lot throughout my whole career actually. Yeah.
Are there other experiences outside of design that have helped you shape your point of view as a designer? So maybe some volunteer work, maybe your cultural influences, or perhaps people that you met in meetups. Like I know that you've met Christo a couple of times,
Oh yeah.
so I'm curious to know how those encounters and interactions have kind of influenced the way that you go about your own work and your own point of view.
Yeah, I actually like to meet people as much as I could. So I would also like travel around, and like if my boss tells me to go to India, I will say, okay, can I just like not go for 1 week? Instead, I would go for like a whole month, you know?
Mhm.
So I'm that kind of person. I actually like to learn different cultures, and I think that actually shaped a lot of my thinking a lot, because then I understand the diversity in people. And also like with Crystal, he's really amazing because he's a designer of his own, but then he is able to, like he always says this, he mentioned like his ideas or what he says to people is that not everything is coming from his own ideas. But I really admire how he can shape a lot of complex idea into a very simple presentation or a simple form that people can understand them. And to me, that is actually what designers are, like a good designer should be able to do. Like that's our job, to make things easy for other people. So he kind of took that design perspective and then make it even more impactful to me. So that's why I really enjoy his work or what he is trying to tell people. Yeah.
So Christo was somebody who's a self-identified entrepreneur that's got it's got the ambition of affecting 1 billion people about design.
Oh
Before it
yeah.
was like $1 billion company. I think he's pivoted a bit to know that it's all about the influence he can exert and kind of change the narrative around how designers see themselves, especially if they're entrepreneurial or want to put out their own professional brand. If I were to look at Sandy Lam as an entrepreneur someday, into somebody who strikes out and kind of makes their mark. I know right now you're fairly comfortable with where you are and you're doing great. But if you were to project out in the future so that in 5 years, you look back at this particular session and you go, either what was I thinking, or yeah, I knew what I was doing. How would you kind of forecast yourself in terms of like being someone that has a certain authority on things? How would you like to position yourself in like 5 years time?
That's a very tricky question actually, because I don't plan myself so ahead. I I I do plan myself a little bit, but not exactly like what I want to be in 5 years. So my goal is like I want to be happy every day. So when I find a thing that I enjoy doing, then I would be very into it and then try to do that more and more. So yeah, I don't know if that, I don't know, I don't even know, maybe I will be an entrepreneur like in 5 years, maybe not, but I don't even think about that at the moment. So
You kind of wait for the moment in terms of like I get that because that's been a pattern of my own with my own career, and that for a while I was very fine with being a UXer, and before that it was being an information architect and a systems administrator. And at some point I was
yeah.
very comfortable just doing code, like writing C# all day long, because it was an interesting mental exercise, even though I knew I was a beginner and wasn't in the realm of some of the people that work for tech companies. But it's really, to your point, it's seeking happiness in what you do in the moment and kind of running with that and seeing where it goes.
Yeah, because like the world also changed,
Mhm.
and sometimes there are a lot of unexpected things that would happen. Like coming to Germany was something that I didn't even expect. A little bit background, like I had a really good job in Vancouver. I was the senior graphic designer in a pretty big company, and I just bought my condo there, like my apartment. And Vancouver housing is pretty crazy, so I actually worked really hard to get that apartment. So I was actually at that moment I was actually in a very, very comfortable position. But then I just got this opportunity to come here. Then I thought like, well, why don't I just come and try different new things and see what it brings to me? And now I'm here, and I actually find myself in a even better position than before. So things just happen.
And you're at this stage in your life where you have that kind of freedom to try different things too. Not saying that when you get older you don't, but there's some more responsibilities that you have as you kind of get closer down the if you go further down the line. Um, in my 20s, I love to travel. I love to do domestic travel all over the place. I just didn't have the luxury of doing any kind of remote working, because you had to be physically somewhere to do the work, especially if it was in computers or anything like that. But yeah, if you take away 30 years, I'd be like, yeah, take a train, let's go somewhere, let's go that, let's go there. What are we eating? Ramen. Fine, I'll have that. But that time
Yeah.
that time has come and gone for me, so I applaud your. No, I won't go there.
But you chose that.
Yeah, yeah, true. But again, it was in the moment, it was in the context, but it was doing something that I thought would be beneficial in terms of like being happy,
Mm,
learning, trying
yeah.
new, getting new perspectives, so that you know what you tend to gravitate towards versus what you don't. And a lot
Yeah.
of that wisdom comes from historical narrative to say, what is the nature of who I am? Self-awareness of a designer, or even like a practitioner, or even a human being. What would you basically gravitate towards, and what really interests you? So to that effect, part of what the reason why I am so into particular people like yourself about what you do is because of my history and my impressions of other people. I see a certain narrative with the types of talent and the types of people that seem to have a flight plan that would suggest, all things being equal, that they have the potential to really make an impact. So part of why I so to speak, hitched my wagon to the Sandy Lam brand is because I'm seeing a lot of the things that historically I've seen from other people that are in the same vein, where if they keep at it and they keep on doing things that are intrinsically motivating for them and that have value for other people, that eventually something's going to come together. So it's not necessarily that you're infallible, but more that you have the potential to really make your mark. And if I can contribute to that in some way, that's where I feel like I'm doing some good.
And
Otherwise,
you have.
yeah. So otherwise, just to sitting back and going, yeah, for 20 years I was a UX guy and I did this. Like, that helps no one. Anybody that kind of falls back on their professional accolades is just living in the past, and I'd much rather concentrate on the now with what's going on. Anyway, this is not about me. Let's talk about you some more.
Well, I mean, where I'm at right now you have influenced me a lot. So I wouldn't say it's not about you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, anyone that can talk to elephants at this point, if your powers have gotten so big that literally you can wave your hand and you maybe the people had something to do with it, but maybe if you wave your hand in the air and you can literally control nature, I mean, all right, I want to see where this goes. You can screw design sprints. Just want you to walk through a zoo and see if like all of them start to follow you and you just kind of go this way. We're going to do an LDJ. I got some peanuts over here. Let's take on the bus. You know, the birds. It's kind of like those scenes in old movies where the birds kind of shit like Mary Poppins or whatever. I don't remember who it was. They put their hands out, all the birds land on them. I don't know. I don't know where that's going to go, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's talk about the Global Virtual Design Sprint, something you and I are both doing a lot of work on. We recently did a webinar with Mural where we were working, you were working primarily on the templates, the kind of the modular templates that we're going to be showcasing probably at the end of this month for teams to adopt, use, take apart, and kind of work with. And we based them on atomic design. But I know that you've been doing other things beyond that. So why don't you kind of give a short list of just literally all the things that you're involved with this event and kind of maybe what your interest is with those.
For this event, I think the template is one big thing. So I want to build, well, actually it was your idea, but I really love the idea.
I think it came out through conversation, so.
Okay, so then, so we are building this design system, so you call it, and I found it very interesting because like my job is actually here, my role is designing a design system. So it's like design sprint, design system, like two things just combined together. It's like a perfect thing for me. So that's something that I will be doing. And then the other thing is I will be helping Robert to do some training. But in terms of just speaking in front of the camera and showing you some theory or talking about how to do things, I'll be running some LDJs, Lightning Decision Jams. And the reason is that because LDJs has a lot of the activities that we will be using in design sprints and a shortened version of it. So in a very short amount of time, you get the hands-on practice. And then so when you go in doing the actual global virtual design sprint, you won't come in cold. And then we can also modify LDJ to fit a little bit even more activities that we can test and try to use that you will be able to use during the design sprint as well.
And the Lightning Decision Jams that are happening next week are also going to be tailored to specific teams. If there are some teams that seem to be well formed and they're all available at a certain time, I'm going to try to make it so that that's their kickoff session. So that outside of like a few people that join the session as observers or that maybe from different teams, I'm going to try to maximize everyone's time and use that as a way of taking the 2 or 3 or 4 different challenges that people have and work it through that process so that they can potentially come with a unified thought or vision or direction around a challenge or an idea. So that at that point, that team probably is focused. It just would need like a game plan between now and say November on what they're going to be doing. And that then they're off to the races. So I would assume that after next week, about a good number to shoot for would be half of the teams are kind of set with where they need to go. And then the rest of them may need some hand holding or have special sessions where they need to kind of come together. But again, that's all part of the mix. This is just to, you're going to be showcasing how Lightning Decision Jams work and to get, like, to your point, giving them the impression or giving them their first impression of the design sprint process and how it works within a virtual.
Yeah, and also like a lot of people join this event may not have used Miro before. So it will be a really good chance for them to explore and also work as like a ice-breaking section.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yep.
One thing, that's a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, and if they're 90 minutes, that first 30 minutes is all about kind of getting you introduced to one another. And while people, I've noticed that while people are getting introduced or introducing themselves, they tend to like wander in the mural a bit and play around in certain things and kind of get test the
Mm-hmm.
interface a bit to get used to it, which is great because
Yeah,
that's what happens naturally in the design sprint process anyway when you're in that virtual space.
yeah.
Um, Maybe I could skip ahead a little bit to what you hope that this entire thing ends up being. So the outcome of the Global Virtual Design Sprint for you personally as a practitioner, as a person. I know that you posted this in people who don't know, we're doing training, virtual design sprint training as part of the entire event so that you get to learn how to do virtual design sprints on your own. One of the questions I posed for the lesson yesterday was, what's the outcome that you want? Start thinking ahead of how you want this whole thing to end for you. And I'm orienting my activities towards those outcomes, especially if I see a lot of those. But if you could kind of go over the ones that are top of mind for you in terms of it's December, it's over. What do you hope happens at the end of all of this?
Well, I guess one of the major one is that I would like to get some case study or proofs on how remote workshop actually can work better than physical workshop, like in-person workshops. That's something that I personally feel when I was doing the global virtual design sprint last event in April. But I don't actually have, like, people ask me why, but then I don't have the tangible proofs or reasons to tell them why. Because I guess during the last event, my focus was not even that. I was just trying to learn this thing and then wasn't really paying too much attention on small things like that. So, but then in general, my feeling was it actually was much more efficient than an in-person event. So this time, while I facilitate, I will pay extra attention on what actually caused me to have that feeling. And then hopefully I can record some of this stuff, either by live streaming or recording the section or just screenshotting stuff. But in the end, my hope will be I have enough evidence or proofs that I can create a case study and tell people the tangible reasons why remote workshop actually can work better than in-person workshops.
Got it. So you have a little bit. It's like it starts the narrative around the story of um, how an online workshop can be differentiated between a physical one and what are the main advantages of it. So almost like you're setting yourself up for, a convincing piece around, how to execute in this environment.
Yeah, because a lot of people say like, a lot of times we are only saying like, yeah, remote workshops are possible. But to me, it's not just that it is possible. To me, remote workshop actually works better than in-person workshops.
And my whole thesis, and I'm like a broken record with this, but it really comes down to efficiency, cost, convenience. I think not only from a business standpoint of being efficient, there's the data starting to get real. People want remote work, and it's becoming a differentiator for people, especially in talent, that want that freedom and to show that they're going to be responsible for it. Granted, you have loneliness. Granted, you sometimes have fragmentation and there's technical issues. But again, it's one of those things where part of that could be generational and part of it could be also preference. But the data speaks for itself that the inclination is going like this.
Yeah.
Every single chart I see is remote work, and this is where this is headed to. I mean, Post-its are great. I love being able to use different colors, but I'm of the opinion that if the more you play in a space now, the the better off you're going to be in the future when this thing eventually goes online.
Yeah, I mean, remote work just can bring a lot more diversity in the group, and that is actually one key thing for any project to be successful.
Yeah.
Have diverse opinions, diverse culture, and yeah. So I think there are a lot of reasons for it, but I just need some evidence, and hopefully I can build a case study for it.
And I also find that in your design work, if I may boldly say so, I think that diversity of experience and also of background also speaks to how you approach your designs. Specifically with the atomic design that you've been working on, there are some designers that will dig in their heels around certain things that they feel are appropriate to put in an interface because they see a certain outcome. Your style is more of, okay, here's my best foot forward. And when you're given my opinions or someone else's around how it could work. You clarify understanding, but then what you tend to do is you take a little while to go after it, but then I can see how you kind of reframe the positioning or the purpose of your designs in terms of how you bring everything together. And it's an interesting mix, especially when you look at where you started versus where you ended, and how you adopt those points of view, but still keep with the narrative around what kind of design you're doing.
Yeah, because I think when I design, I don't design things for myself. I'm designing for the purpose for
Yes.
the other people. So when there are feedback, I would like to adopt them. Obviously, like I also have my thinking, and based on my theories or why so certain things are better, then those things I will stand my feet and say, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not changing it.
You're not an open door. I mean, but basically,
No.
yeah. I didn't mean to intend that. It was more of it's more calculating and figuring out how the two mix. And Frizzo put a top comment here that said like that you can't really finish a sprint that's international without a diverse team to begin with. So it's par for the course. Speaking of which, if anyone on YouTube or in Zoom has questions that they'd like to ask, now is the time to do so. We'll take the latter part of the hour to kind of get to those. We have a few already in the queue that I've showed Sandy, we've kind of gone over. So some of these have people behind them and others are anonymous, but Sandy, I'll kind of go through these one by one. And then if either one of us sees comments in either Zoom or YouTube as we're kind of filtering through the windows, we can remark on those as we see them. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Right. So
I'll try my best.
Since some of these questions are anonymous, I am going to give them names. So Dumbo the elephant wrote in, you know what I'm saying that, and he says, what is your opinion, what in your opinion is key to efficient teamwork when people you've never met and had not experienced all right, let me start that again. Maybe I should, maybe because I'm speaking like Dumbo, I'm not getting the sentence right. What, in your opinion, is key to efficient teamwork with people you have never met and are not experienced with design sprints?
For design sprints,
Yes.
well, interesting, because I actually think that the process itself has the teamwork built in. So in a way, you don't even really need to think about how the team works efficiently. I mean, you can always do some warm-up exercises, but at the same time, I kind of feel like when you do the design sprints, people warm up naturally anyway.
How do you feel, how do you, from your perspective, when you're facilitating, how do you tend to keep everyone involved and focused during, like, say, something like the Global Virtual Design Sprint?
To get them focused, well, small breaks always help. So 90 minutes is the maximum that I would like to go. Anything above 90, I wouldn't do that. So yeah, watch the clock, time keeping. And one thing is like give them tasks to do, things to do, like do small voting section, or they like just call their name. Do you have an opinion on that? And just kind of wake them up in a way.
Mm-hmm.
A trick that I've learned recently is that you can watch their eyes if they are changing tabs on the screen.
Their eyes start from like thing, and then the heat like changes.
You suddenly will see like a white blink, and like then you know that that person is kind of doing something else. That you want to say, hey, what about this question? Or is there anything I can help you understand? Just call their name out without saying that you are watching something else.
One thing I found very, very effective is to do frequent note and votes, especially the first day or further. So it's really, sometimes the note and vote can be, how's everybody feeling? And then you point to a small little part of the mural that has a happy face, line face, or just like, and then there's a sad face, or something of the 5. And then people just vote on the faces, and then we figure out if there's any confusion or anything. But chances are, if someone's not paying attention, they'll tend to not vote, or there'll be something. But normally when you're facilitating, I tend to like just make a note of it. And then when there's a break or anything else, just do a side conversation with that person saying,
Yeah.
is everything all right?
But I actually found like when during a design sprints, the people normally pay a lot of attention because they are constantly given things to do. So I guess one big thing is, as a facilitator, it's very important to control I don't know if that is a better word to control, but try to keep discussions shorter.
Mhm.
If you see like a discussion, because discussions is normally the thing that would bored people, and then they will not paying attention anymore. So if you can keep discussion not so long, if there's any, then I think that's already something that would help a lot.
Yeah. And sometimes you just have to do that gracefully. Sometimes it's deflecting through questions, but yeah, I understand. It's not letting things kind of get into a hold from a discussion standpoint. Then we have Mardea in Garte. I want to make sure that I get her background right, because I believe she's somebody that was part of a recent Lightning Decision Jam for financial planning, and she's part of the Ladder. So she's based out of, let me get this right. She's in Ireland. Yeah, she's the co-founder of the Ladder, and her particular question was, if I get back to there, she says, as a female in the world of design, do you have to prove yourself most of the time on your ability? And how do you manage that kind of energy?
Interesting. Is it really a man dominated industry? I don't even realize that.
I don't know if I mean, I don't, to be honest with you, I don't pay attention to it, but
Me
I mean,
either.
there's plenty of industries that probably have a gender strength to them in terms of like being dominated one or the other. But maybe you can concentrate on the core question is like, do you have to prove yourself and your abilities when it comes to your design?
No. So short answer is like I guess I just focus on what I do. I don't really care in a way.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't know this gender thing, like maybe women will hate me saying this, but I feel like the more that women try to get that special attention in a way, um, the worse it's gonna get. So for me, I just feel like it's just normal, like whatever. I just do my thing. If I turn out to be good in this industry, whatever that is, I'm okay with that. If not, then well, why not? I mean, obviously there are reasons why there are men and women. Certain gender is better at something than the other, and that's totally okay for me. So that's why we can balance each other, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess also like little story. So I used to do autocross car racing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. So I used to race cars, which you would imagine that is pretty male dominated industry.
I would love to see
And
your angry car face when you're concentrating in like a race car, like, you're very like, hey, how's it going? But then you're the kind of car is like, I'm taking that curve and I'm going to cut off every person I see. It's just a different mentality altogether.
I can show you some video.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so like back then, like when I did that, and then they create this woman class, and then I used to win that class every single time because there were just a handful of women in that industry, right? Like, I mean, in that race anyway.
The competition was less just because there
Yeah,
was.
so then I didn't even feel like I was winning anything at all. And to me, that I don't really need that. So I would rather that, like, when the time that I actually did well, even maybe I'm just on the fourth place or fifth place, whatever. But then when I'm in that level with all the other participants, then I actually feel like I was more winning than if I just get that trophy as a woman class. So
Right. When you you kind of bucket it by gender, then it's kind of like, well, oh, I really want to test myself to see, like, no matter what gender you're talking about, where I place in terms of my ability, which is what we ideally like to do. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's not really set up for that. I will say that for me, practicing servant leadership, what I've always been around is the potential of the person, no matter what the gender. So I have people that I've worked with in the past where they themselves have saw themselves in a certain way, or they had really bad managers or really bad experiences with people that were meant to kind of show them the way and help curate their career, or kind of give them air cover for what they needed to do. But when they were finally given the chance to showcase what they can do, holy crap. I mean, I'm thinking about one in particular that now is the head of product over at SiriusXM. And 3 years ago, she was basically struggling to find a job, and she had like a background of both coding and design. But when I met her, and the way that she conducted herself in the interview, the way she talked about herself and everything else, there was that doubt. But I think it was something where I saw it and I thought, oh man, this is a monster. If just basically give her the bandwidth and the leeway to basically do something spectacular. And it turned out to be true. But again, it's based not just on guidance, but on merit. So if you have the merit and the drive and the grit to basically want to do something that makes you happy, but you can perform at it, that's the other half of the equation. So yeah. That's where I stand on that. Not to get too far in the weeds, but yeah. Let's see here. I'm just scanning all the different things. I think we've answered most of the questions, to be honest with you. I'm looking at the YouTube feed and seeing if there's anybody there. There is one that I think Raj Creation. I don't know his real name, so we'll just call him Raj Creation.
I met him in Bangalore, actually.
Oh, okay. So you know each other. Well,
yeah.
He says, what are the main challenges in a virtual design sprint? This question is from the facilitator point of view, and how you make time for all of these things.
Say again? How do I make time?
Well, how you make time for all of the different kinds of activities, I guess, when you do with facilitation. I think what Raj is saying, but Raj, you can type back and just clarify that if you want. So the question to you, Sandy, is like, how do you approach facilitation? What do you tend to do from your standpoint?
Prepare myself. Over prepare. I think that was your advice, actually.
So you tend to over prepare, but how do you do that? Do you tend to how far in advance do you tend to get your virtual design sprints ready?
Depends, actually. Depends on how busy I am. And when I have the first one ready, then the second one is often easier. But I like to start at least get to know the people a week or 2 weeks ahead. So then I often will begin to engage with the team and start with the Slack group and LinkedIn messages saying, hey, our sprint starts soon. Is there any questions, anything that I can help you with? And yeah, during the sprint, it's just prepare, like, so that every time I would like to, in the end of each day. Oh, hey, Robert.
Sorry, I had to move because there were people that were moving things upstairs. I didn't want people going back and forth. So now I'm in my masterpiece theater chair.
It's just like magic.
So yeah, I was definitely moving from one part of the home office to the other. So there you go. I didn't mean to cut you off completely. But now I'm all relaxed. Like, all right, Sandy, tell me more. How do you prepare?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the things is like you prepare the mural. Actually, that's one of the things that I like to do for every single remote workshop. Actually, not even remote workshop. I use mural for in-person workshop as well. So I lay out all the exercise, all the different steps, and if I design my own workshop, not design sprint, because design sprint actually you already get that checklist and everything. But if I actually create my own workshop, I go down to like how much time each exercise need, who we actually need to involve in each exercise, because you don't want to waste people's time sometimes, like especially the PM or the hierarchy people.
Yes.
And yeah, and then goes down to how many packs of sticky notes that we will need, what color we need. I mean, you don't need to worry about that in the virtual world, and that's why I also like that a lot. But in the physical workshop, like I have to count, okay, a lightning decision jam, for example, if you want to run that sailboat exercise, you need how many colors, how many participants, and how many sticky notes they are going to write.
Yes.
And then you need to times that to create some buffer, like that kind of stuff. Like I go down to very little detail stuff when I design my own workshop. And I normally do that at least, well, I start like maybe 2 weeks ahead for that kind of stuff. And then just, I guess, the week before, then I will finalize everything, but expect that things will change also. You will
Yeah.
never have a workshop that will run smoothly 100% like you planned.
That's worth mentioning, because one of the things that separates some really good facilitators versus ones that are still kind of making their way is the ability to call an audible, and understanding where you are in the scheme of things in relation to where the group is, how the aptitude of everyone, where the conversation seems to be going, if the nature of things have changed. Basically, everyone had an impression before they got into the sprint of what they were concentrating on, but after talking it out with a lot of the people in the room and maybe some stakeholders, there's actually a more deeper problem that needs to be kind of assessed. And really it comes down to how you think around, okay, do I stay on the flight plan, or do I recognize that there's an opportunity here to maybe shift or stop the sprint altogether, or whatever you feel is the necessary plan. But the really good facilitators kind of know how to maneuver, especially ones that are going really fast, and how to optimize time for that.
And
go ahead.
Sometimes it's very handy to have like a resource or database of different exercise that you can pull from, because the time that you actually have, imagine like I ran a workshop for like 15 people, and then suddenly we need to change an exercise because that simply things didn't plan as we wanted to, or didn't run as we planned to. And then I had to like figure out, oh, okay, what do we do now? But instead of just trying to make my own, if you get a resource of a database of stuff like that, that a list of different exercises that you can just simply swap, that often is really helpful. And the other thing I really like to do to keep the team on track is every single day I would send out an email or just a message, a passive communication. Like I don't want to put them right in their face. So Slack would be a really good medium. Then I will just tell them what has happened today and what is going to happen tomorrow, so that they don't think about the whole week, and they just have to focus like, okay, we have accomplished so and so, makes them feel good as well. So then, just tell them like what they have finished and then what they should expect tomorrow. The other thing I also like to do is that doesn't really work so super for virtual world, but for the in-person workshop, what I have done also sometimes is that I would take pictures during the day, and then the next day I create like a photo wall, and then I put up their picture, like print them out and stick it on the wall. Then day one, this is what happened. And then the next day, take more pictures, and then you can see every day there are more and more pictures added to it, and then capture some funny moments as well. So that seemed to, the team seemed to like it that way. So
I remember Lisa Lambert from Rule Number 6 doing this, where at the beginning and end of every day, she would have some sort of theme, where if there was a missing person at the end where they weren't there, everyone took a piece of paper and a pencil and would draw the caricature of that person. And she would take a screenshot of it in Zoom so that she could show it to the missing person. Another thing is where you just grab something of worth to you personally that's within grabbing range when they're first starting out, as a way of doing like a snapshot of everyone that was involved with the effort. So she's actually writing an ebook on all these virtual icebreakers that you can do, that I'm really looking forward to seeing what she creates, because I know I'll be using that. I'm not like, I don't have that in mind. I'm more process drone. So I'm more like, okay, do this, do that, do this, do that. And I never think about those things. So that's something that I'm keen to see when it comes out. I will add to your points too. Co-facilitating is the way to go. It's something where you partner with someone that's a good complement to yourself, that has skills that you don't necessarily emphasize, that can really fill in the blanks for you, or it's a great way to mentor. Like at this point, anyone that kind of comes in with you in a virtual design sprint, just being in the same kind of space, is going to learn about, is going to take all the learnings you did from the 4.5 ones that you did in April and what you're going to be doing this time around. And I think it's a really good way of taking what you understand conceptually about the process and seeing how it kind of bears itself out in reality with someone who has experience in the space.
Yeah, but make sure that the two people are sync like on what the outcome is and what we try to do, because has happened that maybe I want to do this exercise and then the facilitator say like, let's change something. Then you are standing in front of a group of people and then trying to discuss, okay, my reason is because blah, 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 blah. And then he or she will be like, I think that's wrong. I think we should do this. That's a disaster.
It's defining the role. So the co-facilitator is there to assist, but not to lead. Facilitator is there calling the shots. Yeah.
Or just like chat before the day.
Everybody else is just on the call going, oh, what's happening? Yeah. you have to define those roles and ground rules in the very beginning, and then have to reiterate them sometimes because people will forget. It's just the nature of things. Danielle here, Harriet, I forget. Now my mouth's going. Danielle Duncan says, what was the compelling event that made you went full-time freelance, and also the main reason that you get into design sprints? I don't think people know this. You're not freelancing. You're actually working for Software AG as a project.
I think they just see me like doing so much stuff.
And they figure that it's going to be like, oh, she just basically does this like I do because I'm the person that owns the company. But no, it's Sandy is working full-time at another company. She's doing this on the side. So if that enlightens you as to how busy she is and how much work she's doing, then you'll kind of come into my Sandy Lam tailgate, and you'll understand that this is somebody who's putting a lot of effort into this, and it's just, yeah.
I do have a full-time job, and I'm in fact still in my office.
Yes.
But I just found like that's also something that people ask me often, like why or how I can find all this time doing this stuff or doing work. And then I guess the easy answer is that because I don't even feel like this stuff is work to me. I actually enjoy doing it. So instead of like some people prefer to or enjoy going out and watch movie, I actually get bored watching movies. My mind would constantly think, okay, when can I get out and do something? I think the people who know me, they can certainly agree to that. Like if they sit me in the place and like, relax, like sit at the beach and watch the water or sunsets. I know a lot of people enjoy that. For me, I like counting the time, when can I go and do something? That's just me. I'm not saying I'm like that's healthy or like it's a good way of doing things, but that's makes me happy. So I don't see a reason.
There's nothing wrong with that. Actually, that's probably healthy in and of itself. It's just that you like doing what you do. We all have downtime, like we all do, and we spend it in different ways. The same could be said when I was DJing, where there would be anywhere from 18 to 20 records come in per day to the radio station I was working at. And each one of them would be a scan to say, what's going on in the air, but the other ones are like, what can I use for my sets? So while other people were out going to like fraternity parties and house parties and going to visit their families or just having a great old time on campus, I would be sitting there in a DJ booth till 1:30, probably 1:30 in the morning, basically putting all these colored like dots on to mark BPMs, to figure out what set was going to work when I went down to Detroit to do a set. Exact same thing, just different context. So if you're the type of person that finds more enjoyment in kind of exploring other avenues beyond socialization, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's probably something that you start to not look at weekends as weekends, you just see them as days. And that really you're just doing something that you love doing or like doing, and just pursue that and see where it goes.
Yeah. Like
So
it's
we're,
my hobby in a way. So
yeah, and that I think that's a healthy thing. So we're almost out of time. I think we should take the rest of the minutes that we have to kind of go over some things that you have coming up, and anything you'd like to tell the audience that's paying attention to you right now. Where they can find you and where they can learn more about you.
to learn more about me, I'm actually everywhere. You can find me anywhere on social media.
Google Sandy Lam and ignore the
No,
singer.
Google the Sandy Lam
Okay.
with the, because if you Google Sandy Lam, then you will only find the Hong Kong singer.
That's true. So for reference, you are on Pinterest. You're on TikTok actually, which is a surprise. But it's good to see you there. You're on Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. I mean, pretty much all the social networks you're visiting.
Yeah,
Instagram,
Instagram, Medium.
I think
I don't know what else.
you also write a Medium. So you also have thesandylam.com is your website, or is it Sandy Lam Design? Which one is the more updated one?
They are all the same.
Are you saying that it's just all vanilla? You just basically
they are just linking to each other, but my plan is I want to actually build my own personal brand instead of just framing as design in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I want people to be able to relate to me more instead of just knowing my work. That's why I just recently got that domain, the Sandy Lam, and it also works for all my social media handler. So that's why I got that. But for now, until I get that personal brand website up, it's still just forwarding it back to my design website.
Do you just really quick? Are you partial to doing documenting, like kind of documenting what you do, or are you more of the curation type where you want to create something before you send it out in the world?
No, I like to document because I don't like one trick that I've learned is sometimes I just start capturing my screen, record my whole screen, even though I may not be even sharing my work at all. But if I want, now I have, because it's very hard to keep control set to go back to so many steps and then recreate that process. It's not possible.
What if I could put a vote into something that you've done that I think you should do more of, and I would love to see it, is with those videos that you posted on LinkedIn about your design process and explaining while the design was going in real time, just how you approached the way you design in terms of like how you constructed it, how you changed it up, maybe even doing some observations on what you had done. Because I almost think that that mode of doing it is a really interesting way of showing a case study or showing a process rather than trying to explain it through a resume or anything else. Like literally showing what was done in your creative process and then narrating it to give some context around what had happened.
Yeah, the challenge is like I need to speed up the video a lot often because people lose interest if your video is more than 5 minutes, basically. I mean, there's some room to play, but 5 minutes is pretty much the time. And often I spend maybe hours on one thing, and then I need to speed up to like 3,000 times.
So maybe you should do some creative editing and just basically go like, okay, here's where you want to pay attention. Here's where you want to go. Yeah. Otherwise, it could be like, I switched fonts 3 times, and then there's like a 10-second silence waiting for it to get done. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't normally narrate like the talk when I'm doing things. I would speed up the video and then I talk about it during playing that speed up video. So it's not real speed.
Yeah.
Don't think like I can work so fast.
If you did work that fast, then you would be on a different plane of attention. You're like, really? You click that fast? I mean, you would almost have friction burns from like moving either the trackpad or the mouse that fast. And you would probably have to have like a really high processor speed, because I really don't think the software could catch up to you anyway. If that was So, okay, Sandy, I really appreciate your time coming on to GVDS Presents. I hope you had a lot of fun. We're going to be putting up the recording. I think the stream's going to be available on YouTube. I'll put up all the links that will pipe back to all of your social media. So if people want to check out your work in the past, they can do so. If you're part of the Global Virtual Design Sprint, you're definitely going to see Sandy's work. She's also going to be doing some live broadcasts of some lightning decision jams with the teams next week. Are you going to be putting those up on YouTube?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. Well, if you're sure. Otherwise, you may go to Vimeo or something else. But I just want to make sure I say it right.
Yeah, actually, I don't have a Vimeo account.
So they're gonna be streamed somewhere. You're just gonna have to find them. One way or another, they're gonna be out there.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, all that's coming. Wonderful having you on. I'm looking forward to working with you coming up in November. So thanks again, Sandy. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was really wonderful. Much easier than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It wasn't going to be like I go, so what is your thought about fonts? It's not going to be like that. No.
It was great. Thanks for letting me hear. So, and thanks for everyone for joining.
Yeah, it was really cool. Thank you everyone for joining the call, both on YouTube and in Zoom. And by the way, I have to ask one last question. The hair color this time, is this for the Global Virtual Design Sprint, or was it just like the time where it's just like I need a new hair color?
It has a big story about it, but I don't want to go so far.
Okay. Make it a blog post or on a Medium or something.
So it depends on who I'm talking to. If my colleagues or my manager asks, I will say it's my brand color because this is my company also use. If I'm talking to Robert, I did it because we are going in GVDS and we're doing blue.
All right, got it. There you go. It's wonderful. Okay, Sandy, I know you got to go. Thanks a lot for your time. We'll talk to you later, okay?
Awesome. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.